How are religious institutions doing now that COVID-19 is upon us, especially when it comes to praising and worshipping at a certain institution or at a certain building? Now we've done away with that. How are churches coping?
Churches are coping. Religious leaders are adapting the situation, though some churches in rural areas are not coping. For instance, they don't know how to use technology to communicate with members. That is why we've seen some of them being arrested yesterday. I think religious leaders who are benefiting a lot is those who are in big cities. They're familiar with technology, and we've been using technology for some time, even before the announcement of a fourth industrial revolution. We've been using technology, but our people really are suffering in rural areas. That is why it's important that when we start campaigns, we must always make sure that there is education involved and people are allowed to drive these campaigns themselves, especially in rural areas.
Archbishop, I want to come back to the issue of the digital divide and perhaps how it's playing out in South Africa, particularly in a religious institution context. But I want to speak about the role of religious institutions in a society. I mean, we've seen in history, previous instances, how it has formed a part of identifying, analyzing, and even remedying some of these social problems. So in lieu of this, based on the period we find ourselves in, I mean, how can religious institutions and leadership help to contribute to South Africa's recovery at large?
I think what is important now, I'm sure you are aware that we have different doctrines and pieces of Christian groups in our country as we speak, unlike other faith institutions where there's a number of national bodies and so on that are connected with local churches. I think what we need to do moving forward as Christian institutions, we need to come up with ways of making sure that we work together and there's accountability within Christian movements, and all our national structures are connected to communities, so that at the end of the day, when these countries drafting national strategies, for instance, were able to contribute as a united force behind a country plan. That's what we need moving forward. Religious leaders or faith leaders are still important in our society. There is a role that needs to be played by us. Remember, we used to build schools, we used to build clinics, we used to build hospitals as faith institutions, and I think that role is still there. Was still needed in our communities. Churches are centers of hope in our society, and I'm sure you are aware that even faith leaders, some of them are chaplains in different departments, military, up to the level of South African police services. We are doing counseling in societies. For instance, we are still baptizing children. We are still in charge of Sunday schools. We bury you guys when there is that need. We're still playing our part in our society. But what is important now in this crisis in particular, we need to come up with the ways of uniting the body of Christ, so that when we are needed by the state, we go there as one voice. It doesn't matter which doctrine you push, but at the end of the day, we must come up as a united force behind state plans.
Archbishop, my next question is more broadly based on religion on the whole. I mean, Jewish people are celebrating Passover over the past few days. We are celebrating Easter, Christians, and then you've got the Islam religion also going into their holy fasting month of Ramadan. Now, because of COVID-19, all of these instances, it's usually a family occasion, a family-filled occasion. How do you think other religions are going to adapt with still celebrating their beliefs, but also adhering to COVID-19 regulations?
To be honest with you, as faith leaders, we are behind our president. We are behind our country. we are behind all these plans to ensure that we fight this coronavirus. As I've indicated earlier, we're trying our level best. For instance, some of us who have been using technology for some time, for us to communicate via Facebook or Twitter is not a new thing. We have even created online TV stations so that we're able to communicate with members. But as I've indicated earlier, we're a little bit worried about rural churches that do not have access to technology. But we're coping. At the beginning, I don't want to lie, we were a little bit stressed because we did not understand what is happening. Because remember, this coronavirus thing is new to everybody, and I'm sure you are following Twitter, where people were even asking, where are the prophets? Where are the prophets? Prophets are nowhere to be found. All of us were still shocked. We don't have an idea what is happening, and we're still studying as well this virus. We're still collecting our own data to ensure that when we contribute meaningfully. We don't add confusion. We don't confuse our people. That is why we are in compliance as the religious leaders to say, rather than creating our own videos and confuse people, let us follow the state, let us support our state, so that at the end of the day, we contribute meaningfully to this fight against coronavirus.
Archbishop, you mentioned some of the services that religious institutions will continue to offer, including counseling, baptism, funerals, etc. For those watching, it is the Easter weekend. I want to know from you what your message is to those out there. How do we stay on the course during this unprecedented time?
I did not get that part.
I was just asking what your message of hope is, perhaps to those watching, as we obviously enter this extended lockdown period, and we chart to navigate these unprecedented times.
I think there is too much panic in our communities as we speak. For instance, even ourselves as the religious leaders, faith institutions, we're trying our level best to calm our people down, and also trying to talk to also religious leaders who are learned, who understand what is happening, to say, let us reserve our comments for now. Let us not jump to conclusion and try to associate this disease with evil spirits